Learners. Today we are going to see A River by A.K.Ramanujan. Before going to the poem, let's see a short introduction about the author. About the author, Attipat Krishnaswamy Ramanujan was his full name and his lifetime was between 1929 to 1993. He was a poet, translator, folklorist and philologist. Philologist means the one who studies the origin of language with reliance to the literature or on for studies origin of language. His early degrees at the University of Mysore and Deccan College in Pune and PhD from Indiana University. He worked as a professor of Dravidian Studies and Linguistics in Chicago universities. His work, he wrote both in English and Kannada. Apart from English and Kannada, he has a fluency in Tamil and Telugu. His poetry is known for its thematic and formal engagement with modernist transnationalism. He lived a life of exile. He was not in India, but he remembers his childhood, his memories associated with India. In one quote, he says that he wants to live in every part of India 1 year each. He became disillusioned with his teaching. His works include The Striders, which was published in 1966, and Selected Poems is 1976, Second Sight 1986, The Collected Poems of A.K. Ramanujan 1995. The Striders, in this collection, the poem The River, today we are going to see, is present in this collection, The Striders. And he also wrote a controversial essay, Is There as an Indian Way of Thinking? Here he gives two ways of answer for the Indian way of thinking. Then other works include The Interior Landscape, Love Poems from the Classical Tamil Anthology, 1967. Folk Tales from India, a selection of oral tales from 22 languages, 1991. A Flowering Tree and Other Oral Tales from India, 1997. And 300 Ramayanas, 5 examples and 3 thought translation. These all works are his fellowship winning works, and 300 Ramayana is a critical and controversial work which was not accepted in India. It was published in US. Let's go into the poem. A River. In Madurai, city of temples and poets who sang of cities and temples, every summer a river tries to tickle in the sand. We all know that Madurai, the poem is about the river Vaigai which flows through Madurai. In Madurai, we know that Madurai is a city of temple and poet. The poet mostly sings about the cities and temples. Every summer, the rivers trying to tickle its the basement part of the river, which the sand reveals. We can see the sand clearly when the water was drained. Barring the sand drips, straws and woman hair, clogging the water gates at the rusty bars. Under the bridges which patches of repair all over them. We can see if the river was full of water, we cannot able to see that under part of the river. But it was when it was dry, we can able to see clearly the sand, the stones, the dust materials, and the ugly part of the river. Simply, we describe it as an ugly part of the river because it contains a lot of dust, sand, everything there. Now, the river was dry, and the poet was able to see the sand drips and straws and woman hairs are clogging in the water gates. Because the people we use it for bathing, washing, and for all the purpose, for multi-purposely, we are using that river. And the hair, the dust materials, that everything was clogging on the gates of the water gates and the rusty bars. The bars which was put for the people to catch and then they walk easily, that bar was rusty, and we were able to see the patch workers under the bridges because it was repaired all in all the places. The wet stone glistening like a sleepy crocodiles, and the right ones shaven water buffaloes long in the sun. The poet only sang of floods. the wet stones. It was full. It was look like a sleeping crocodile, and the dry stones. It's like a shaven water buffaloes, because it was dried and the waste materials above it was also dry, and it looked like a shaven buffaloes, and the wet stone with this greenish matters. It looked like sleepy crocodiles. The poet always thinks of the flood. They always thinks of the full water flow of the river, and always thinks of the flood, how the water is filled and touches the edges of the river. Like that, the poet used to sing. But he says that he was there for a day when they had the flood. People everywhere talked of the inches rising, of the precious number of cobbled steps run over by the water rising on the bathing places, and the way it carried off three village houses, one pregnant woman, and a couple of cows named Brinda and Gopi as usual. He was there for a day. The poet was there for a day in which it had the river has had the flood. People everywhere talk about the the water level rising, inch by inch the water level rising, and they talk about how it reached the bathing, how many gobble steps it has raised, and how it reached the bathing place. It's above the bathing place. The people are everywhere was seriously discussing about the rising level of the river, and they also discuss about the three village houses which was carried in the flood, one pregnant woman and a couple of cows, and named Gopi and Brinda. It not only carries three village houses along with one pregnant woman and two cows, named Gopi and Brinda. The new poet still quoted the old poet, but no one spoke in verse of the pregnant woman drowned with perhaps twins in her kicking at blank walls even before birth. The new poets always used to quote the old poets and the full flow of the river, because the old poet always thinks that the full flow and the flood of the river only. The new poets also used to quote from the old poets, but no one is speaking about the tragic part, the other of the river, the other half of the river's face, the tragic part of the pregnant woman and the three houses. Uh, no one is speaking about the tragic part of the pregnant woman who has twins in her belly, kicking at the blank walls before the birth. He said the river has water enough to be poetic about only once a year, and then it carries away in the first half an hour three village houses, a couple of cows named Gopi and Brinda, and one pregnant woman expecting identical twins with no moles on their bodies, with different colored diapers to tell them apart. He said the poet sings about the other part, the tragic and the ugly part of the river. He says that as the ancient poets or old poets quoted, the river was full of flood and water. It was once in the year, only once in the year, the river was full of water. In the summer, it rains, and we can able to see that sandstones and human hair and straws, which was gobbled in the water gates. So he says that it carries in the flood. It carries in first half an hour three village houses and a couple of cows named Gopi and Brinda, and one pregnant woman expecting twins with no moles on their body, with different colored diapers to tell them apart. He says that you have to note that the village and the number of village houses and the name of the cows and pregnant woman who was expecting the identical twins. She was expecting an identical twins. She to differentiate them. She used to think that I want to differentiate them from them by using different colors of diapers to tell them apart. He is the older and he is the younger. So the poet used the technique of enjambment, the technique used to cut the sentence. It is easy to understand the poem once you read, because it was like a normal sentences that was cut into lines and arranged into a pattern like a poem. Here, you have to note that the name of the cows and the number of the village houses and the pregnant woman who was expecting their identical twins, and the river. It was in Madurai, the Vaigai River. There are possibility to ask questions about these minor details. It is very easy to understand. Thank you.